All right, Jeff Garmire, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you on the Singletrack podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. I mean, 8 days removed from being done. I mostly got a bad case of Christmas toes, but I'm making it work.
What's Christmas toast?
It's where you don't have feeling in your toes till Christmas.
Real?
It's actually a classic through hiker term, I think, or maybe a decade ago in my day it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a through hiking background as well, and I guess I never called it Christmas toast, but there definitely was the 3 to 4 months post hike where you would walk around the house somewhat gingerly, and yeah, you were gradually regaining sensation.
Yeah, I think I heard it somewhere and it's like, I'm going to keep using this. Christmas toes is like a perfect explanation.
Do you, now that it's done, do you have any anxiety about what type of damage this does to your body and mind? Or is it one of those things where, like, if you never took another step on a trail again, never did a race again, you'd be so satisfied with your career?
Wow. I think that's two parts. I'm not nervous about any damage. I think I've thrown out that line of thinking a long time ago, probably 9 years ago when I did the AT in the winter. I threw out the line of thinking of what damage am I doing? And I don't think my brain can even think like that. It's just what is my best in this moment? That's what I'm going to give with no thought on like down the road damage or anything like that. And I do think the second part of that, I don't I don't think I'm at the point where I've processed anything enough to like be content. I think I love backpacking and I love the adventure trail run where you don't look at your watch or carry your pace. So then if you're on a peak and you love it, you can hang out there an hour. Those are my two loves in the world. And I would never want to say I'd never have to do those two again. But
Yeah.
as far as like feeling pressure to race or do FKTs, maybe I'm at that point. I think there will be that fire again at some point, but it's sure not there right now.
Yeah, and I asked it because obviously you're a great athlete, accomplished, definitely have made an incredible mark in the FKT scene, but also like are just so consistent at races like Cocodona. And so I think I meant it more like obviously you're going to keep doing this activity, I'm guessing for life, but like I've always wondered how many matches you burn in this type of endeavor. I feel like the thinking in our sport has been you save this until the back end of your career. But now there's this generation of like you, Tara, Joe, who have like a really impressive career after the fact as well. So it's just, to me, it's a really interesting mystery box.
Yeah, I think you burn all your matches, maybe mentally and emotionally. I think physically, we're more and more impressed with science and following that and like proper fueling, your body bounces back quicker. But the mental and emotional side are going to lag way behind. And in coaching athletes, I call it mile zero syndrome of like, after you achieve what you've worked months for, it's really hard to be told you're starting at mile zero, whether that's a race or an FKT is you just have to mentally be ready to do it all over again from zero before it's the right time to race or do an FKT or whatever. And that's how I explain it to the people around me. And I think I'm going to have that mile zero syndrome for quite a while. Just, I think I need to retrospectively unpack everything I went through as far as like growth and emotional, mental, everything out on the trail before I can really even think about moving forward. Cause I feel like I just skipped so many steps that I really earned out there that if I try to move forward and, gloss over it by putting something on the calendar, then I'd miss out. Although I am signed up for Cocodona, so no big deal. That's just like another year, another Cocodona.
Well, you got to get, what is it, like the 1,200-mile buckle at this point?
Yeah, exactly. Me and Andy Glaze having our longest last person standing ever.
You told Allison that you're glad it's over. And I do think it's common at the end of any finish line to just, yeah, like you're ready to be done. But how long was that weighing on you?
For it to be over, um, I don't think so. I think we're mentally designed to know, like, as we're getting to a certain point or a conclusion, that that's when we kind of empty the tank and then it's all over. Whether it's coming home from the grocery store and you got to pee, you know where that front door is, like, you barely make it. But if it was a mile further, you'd probably still barely make it. I think the same sort of thing is how we're designed in races or in FKTs of if it was 20 miles or 20 days longer, I would have made it in the same aspect that I was glad it was over because that's when I had known for 45 days that it was going to be over. So I think it just naturally emptied the tank and was done at that moment. But yeah, I think it was really interesting to get to think through these things for 20 hours a day out there of like, that is interesting. I always end up with nothing right at the end, no matter the distance. So it's just, I'm so pre-programmed to do that. And I think that's just how we all are. So I would have hated for someone to say at Springer Mountain, all right, now I have to hike down the approach trail. It would have been like, okay, I'm camping here tonight. Like even 7 more miles would have been a mess.
In the through hiking community, I think it's peculiar. I was just up in Monson a few days ago, and I was at the Shaw's Hiker Hospital,
Yeah.
and I was blown away by the number of people that were on a yo-yo. And maybe it's just the through hiking community specifically and the pace they're going, and it's more so a lifestyle than this 45-day active physical courage. But like they are depressed when it's done. Like
Oh,
it
yeah.
has evolved into a lifestyle, and actually going back into the quote unquote real world is like, I mean, it's almost like a jail sentence.
Yeah. I would say I'm definitely depressed after this, but I couldn't physically go anymore. And I think mentally I just needed a break from this continual stress of every 3 hours I had to cover 10 miles. It was like that continual stress. It's like at some point it has to break after so many days of just micromanaging your life in one aspect, which is just forward motion.
What's the nature of the depression after something like this?
It's just hard to find meaning into the very fragmented world we live into. Like, oh, I guess I should record a podcast and put that out. But it's like, but whatever. Like, I already did everything I'm talking about, and it's like, oh, I should probably start stretching more, or I need to go see if I have a broken toe, and I need to get back into coaching and reconnect with all my athletes, and all of this stuff just feels like it's a mountain that I'm staring at that I still have to climb. And it's like, I just want to like sleep and get rid of this brain fog too. Yeah, I think I'd call it like a 48-hour push at the end and just barely any sleep compounded with, about 12 days before that, averaging 3 hours of sleep. I just didn't do a good thing to my brain either. And it's really slow to get over that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I was impressed by, because I follow the podcast Free Outside, and I was following your build up for this, and seeing the level to which you multitasked to set up your life to go do this for 45 days was incredible. Like, you go on this training camp, not only are you crushing miles and making the lights, but you're bringing a laptop with you.
Yeah, I did my training camp with the laptop for 2 weeks, and I recorded 2 podcasts. I continued coaching. I basically continued working out there. I'd train for 2.5 days and spend about a half day getting stuff done in a hostel, and then I'd repeat. But yeah, I wanted this so bad, and I also didn't want to come back to nothing in my life, which, most thru hikers in their 20s do. That I just really knew if I was going to do this, it would be a massive hole to climb out of if I didn't like maintain the current life I'd spent years building. So I think I just made that a necessity. So yeah, I worked like harder going into the FKT than it felt like I had to on the FKT because everything was on autopilot. So I only had to think about the record while I was out there.
How much of the experience, if you had to ballpark it like percentage wise, 0 to 100, what percentage of this experience can you honestly say was enjoyable versus just suffering?
Oh, maybe around 50-50. I
Really?
loved Maine and New Hampshire are just so fun. I loved that experience, and I let myself sleep 6 hours a night through the entire thing. So I just got to enjoy that. And then, so that's 400 miles that are pure enjoyment right there. Then I think I could cobble together 700 more good miles out of the rest of it.
So it was, and this is interesting to me because I was also going to ask about how long it sort of like takes to build into this level of comfort where your legs have kind of caught up to the demands of the trail and you're sort of flowing. I heard you tell Allison that you got into trail shape, but then you also got past trail shape.
Yeah.
You say, but Maine and New Hampshire were enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, my legs were just so beat up and it was hard to sleep with how tired they were every night. But I just think that kind of terrain where it's like you're engaged on every step and you're kind of just pushing, being smart with, like, it was a drought, you had to change your your dates for your FKT, but just having to focus on that level of things, it was like, oh yeah, back to stimulation of an FKT. What are all the goals and scenarios and factors that contribute to success? That's where my mind has to rest. And it was so fun to get to go from real life into that mode of thinking and then be so engaged on like the Mahoosuc Notch and I don't know, climbing Mount Washington at midnight. Like all these little micro goals and challenges were really fun. And then it got hard, I think, once it got more to like a normal through hike and there was your kind of, I don't know, honeymoon, but you have to up your miles per day from here on and it's gets real serious.
Switching gears a little bit, I want to hear you talk about the financial side of making this possible. I know you obviously have the media business. You are an athlete in the sport. You've got the coaching business, so you can probably support it to that extent. But like with sponsors and stuff, are they taking an interest in this and putting money up for you to do this? How does it work?
Not to the level I think people before me did.
Really?
Yeah,
What's your point?
I think I'd say I funded most of this myself. Yeah, behind the curtain, like my athletic sponsorships, it's a set amount for the year that kind of includes travel, race entries, and then there's payment beyond that. So I just because Cocodona is so expensive, I ran Bighorn to get a Hard Rock qualifier. That used up most of my travel budget, and I didn't get a whole lot more beyond that. I mean, the athletic side and saying, you run for a certain brand is really cool. And that's like what I think a lot of young people aspire to, but it's a very small percent of my actual income that, yeah, I probably could have worked more to get more project based funding for this, but then that's eliminating hours I could put on the more sustainable things that I do to make money too. So there was definitely support, but it's all just in the standard expected support and stuff like that. And I joined Mount to Coast to put on like a project based thing, mostly because we could get Eric Jenkins doing some funny commentary along the way. So even that, I took way less money than probably could have for some stuff because I always see the value in, well, I see it in like entertaining people and that's funny, but also that this is a good relationship and partnership and just explore a new style. Like this could go mega viral and be good for everybody, or it could not. But I'd rather take less and come up with this new style of putting out there with the potential to be something really unique. And so that's kind of the financial side. And then I paid another coach, Alyssa Clark, actually, to interact with my athletes and do their pre-race calls. So I kept all my 20 athletes that I coach, most of them just kept on board, and she worked with that. And then I pre-recorded 20 podcasts or something with
Crazy
a,
impressive.
a bunch of people involved in the AT and slowly released those during the attempt because I thought that would be a fun way to hear what Warren Doyle has to say or hear Joey Camp's adventure. I can't believe I got him. That was my best
Great
get.
pickup. Great pickup. Great get. You
He
know,
had to leave his phone on overnight so it would upload actually, but we got it. But yeah, I just kept everything rolling like that. And then I got told I had to move out of my apartment in July, at the end of July. So I didn't pay rent for 2 months. So I, had that benefit of a little extra money. And I'd say I spent less than most standard through hikers. All my money was ahead of time in resupply boxes. And then I probably just spent a few $100 on the trail while going through places to get ice cream or something.
I'm more so asking this because I'm sure there are people in the audience that want to follow in your footsteps and they're wondering about this type of stuff. If you had to ballpark it, how expensive is it to do this thing self-supported?
Oh man, maybe. So I'm going to take out the training camp and everything leading in. You got to come up with that on your own. But I think for less than $3,000, you could do this.
Wow.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
can use some gear partnerships and stuff too, like helping to defray that cost.
yeah, I'd say 3,000 with no sponsors. You could do it. You only need one outfit. Come on, how expensive is that? Yeah,
Years ago, shoes, I'm guessing would rack up costs. Like, if you weren't supported, you'd probably spend $1,200 in shoes at least.
yeah, Yeah, I think. Yeah, maybe. I just don't think you can. So postage 500, and then I think I spent 600 or let's say 1,000 on food. So we got 1,500 there. Maybe give you $500 in gear, and yeah, I didn't spend the gear. I mean, you're getting like warm weather camping gear, so it's like a little cheaper. Like a 50-degree sleeping bag is, it only costs like $120. I bought it myself. So, yeah, I think, and then another thousand on travel and stuff on the trail. I think I'd say $3,000. It's if you're really dialed. Like I bought all my food ahead of time at like Winco and Costco, or Walmart, like cheaper way and stuff like that. But I use flat rate boxes, so I'd have tracking. That's a little more expensive. And if you bought your shoes and stuff ahead of time, I just don't think so. Where it adds up for a normal through hike is when you're in town, you go to a hostel, say $70 a night, then you go out to dinner, $30 a night, you drink some beers, another 20. That's like $150 every 3 to 4 days. And I didn't spend that. That doesn't apply to mine. And so multiply that times a 5-month through hike. That's why my through hike was probably way cheaper than the standard one, is there were just so few opportunities.
And then you get the sense that you were less supported than other self-supported tents that came before you.
Let's not say less supported, but I don't think there was like a overwhelming pre-support. I do know what, let's keep it generic, what past people have asked for from brands. I'm pretty connected in the space, and I know that my asks were smaller and not totally fulfilled.
I just find that interesting because you're not nobody. You have a resume in the sport. You have fairly popular podcast, I'm guessing. You've proven yourself. It wouldn't really be a risk. I mean, obviously this is a risky endeavor, but of all the people out there to do it, you would be a pretty de-risked person to partner
I'm
with.
very bad at the outreach and PR and stuff, and any self promotion is like cloaked in self-deprecation or humor. So yeah, I maybe it's how the image that I convey as well, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not good at that aspect of it, but we just kind of march forward how I am.
And then maybe this is just like a romantic sentiment, but you compare $3,000 investment to hearing someone like Carl Meltzer 10 years ago. So adjust for
Mhm.
that inflation. 10 years ago, saying that it was a six-figure project to do this thing supported. I just love that the contrast there.
Yeah.
There are there's a romanticism to that to me.
So I've through hiked about 40,000 miles in my life, and I would say I've spent less than six figures to do all of those miles. So just different ways of doing things.
Are you financially rewarded after the fact? Like, are there like what when you finish this thing, you set a new FKT? Did the partner step in and say bonus or something like what's the reward here besides obviously like emotional satisfaction?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I need you help me with what my award should be. I think there's some opportunity. I think I want to write another book. This one seems like a cool thing. I've started a couple other books, but I haven't, and this one feels pretty worthy. And it'd be fun because the last book I wrote is about the County or Triple Crown, and it starts with the AT. And so it'd be cool to write one just
We're
solely.
in the Kennebec, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. The Bangor Daily News or the Bangor newspaper wrote about how much of an idiot I was doing that. And it's like, totally fair. Yeah. But also, why are you publicizing this? Don't tell people that it can be done.
So if you're writing a book about this, did you keep, is it mental notes? Did you voice dictate into your phone? Like, how did you document this other than what we saw on Instagram? Or
Yeah, every adventure for the past 15 years, I've written like a blog post, and most are on my website. And I used to have like a blog spot and all that. And then I just transitioned to video updates on this one, but I still kept the same notes that I always would. Like every day, I'd put in maybe 5 to 10 bullet points on things that happen. It could be like stray dog, no water, feet aching, rolled my ankle. Like it could be like little notes like that that'll just jog my memory on this happened on that day. And I did it for every single day on this adventure too. And maybe it cost me 10 minutes over the course of the whole thing. But I think that's the most fun way to relive everything that wasn't a highlight or a low light, is to just have this list that'll jog my memory. And yeah, I know pretty much everything that happened every day, even if mentally I was a little out of it. At least I have those notes.
I mean this in a positive way, but just listening to you talk about sort of like the partnerships around this, the benefits of it from a business standpoint, it doesn't sound like you're strategic about this. And I mean that in a positive way. Like I think a lot of people that are angling for certain sponsorships by doing certain races and stuff like that. And you are going to do this Appalachian Trail speed record attempt, self-supported, kind of independent of whatever carrots were in front of you.
Yeah, let's see. How do I want to put this? So I think my whole life, or like I graduated college and went and became an accountant and then a business consultant and contract CFO and stuff. And I just learned how much I hated the interaction and like motivations of money. And I was suicidal and quit that whole space and did the calendar year Triple Crown. And I think that just paved the way for what is positive and um, I don't know, the style of thinking and immersing myself in adventure that I like of, yeah, it'll be cool. And there's no doubt that I could expand the coaching business or whatever just from this. And there are benefits and stuff, but I think I'm still in this middle ground of finishing it and kind of thinking more to the future of it still doesn't matter to me at this point. Money's never mattered. And I mean, I would love to have more and I don't have very much, but just the sheer positivity I've gotten from the past 10 years of being kind of in this space and pointed at doing it, I still go after the things that mean the most to me versus would have the best career. And so a good example of that is Cocodona is not like very suited to my style and what I could do the best at, but I have so much fun at it every year that I've done it every year, or I could do a different race that time of year, but it's so much fun. And fun when I quit my corporate job was just going to be one of the pillars that governed everything of like, if I stopped doing things that are fun, I don't really know too much reason to keep doing anything at all.
Right.
And so that's just like floated into it. And that trumps what's going to impact business or publicity or my Instagram followers of like, if this is making me laugh or this is fun or I'm getting to just really enjoy this experience, that's what I want to do. And then everything else can kind of slot below that of like, hopefully that works out. Hopefully we can follow along and stuff. But even the Mount to Coast partnership for the AT was like, this sounds really fun with what Eric's doing. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. And it's never been like maybe get a 10 times more money or something with someone else, but this sounds way more fun. And I'm never going to give up that fun aspect that too many adults give up on.
I didn't realize that this has been a 10-year experiment and you totally blew your life up, 2016.
Yeah, 2016, February. Yep. Experiment is still going, as David Roach says, N of one.
So existentially and in terms of like happiness and stuff, do you get the sense that just switching environment can dramatically change things as opposed to it being this like brain chemistry type thing?
I think it's a really long process of lessons along the way. So I blew it up and through hiked for 9 months and it's like, this is amazing. But then you learn this isn't sustainable. I have a few friends that maybe live in hostels or something, but I don't have these true cemented relationships. And so over the next 5 years, live a few different places, like best places in the world, like Costa Rica and Tahoe and um, Bozeman and stuff like that. It's just like, okay, like all these places are the places everyone dreams of living. I can find something wrong with all of them. It's not the place anymore. It's just, what are you looking for and what are you going to make your home? So it's just these compounding lessons. And like in Bozeman, just I all through high school, I took a period off class and volunteered at the local elementary school. And volunteering was a big part of my life growing up. And then in Bozeman, it's like, okay, I'm just missing something. And I started volunteering with Special Olympics. And it's like, I can complain about things with Bozeman. It gets too cold or, too many people from LA are moving here. But just through those lessons over 10 years that I've just compounded, it's like, it's not the place, but this is a great place. It's not the adventure, but I can have enough adventure to have a good life. It's not the, I don't know, money or it's not the prestige or anything. It's like, what do you personally value? And it was like giving back. So just combining all these things slowly over the last decade, I think I'm pointed the right direction. But I mean, I think that's why we get a lifetime is that compounding and finding what makes me happy or enjoy or fit into life is the continual process.
I think one of the only tragedies of this project is that other than what we got on Instagram, which by the way was incredible, and I was a religious follower of your Instagram updates, it's frustrating that because of the rules of the system, there's not much you can do to document your attempt otherwise, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I know that like I talked about the romanticism of doing this on a budget, which is incredible. But the benefit that the supported side of this has is it can be this built out, almost like cinematic experience, depending on who's doing it, how much budget they have. And you didn't have that at your disposal. And like, I mean, again, like you go back to like the motivations of why to even do this in the first place. And audiences obviously sounds like for you very secondary, maybe even an afterthought. But wish I could have like been a fly on the wall. And
Yeah. Do you know whose fault it is that we can't document this stuff?
are we going to dox this person?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, let's do it.
It's me. It's actually me.
Really?
Yeah. We shot a film on setting the unsupported record on the Colorado Trail. And then after that, they changed the rules because there was starting to be too much crossover and gray area on like trusting cameras and support. And then there was, yeah, just so talked to them and they decided that can't document self-supported or unsupported adventures after that was Dylan Harris's first film actually. So
Yeah. I mean, and I was just talking about this with Will Peterson on his From the Backcountry podcast because we were kind of lamenting the same thing in a different setting. And I said to him, Tim, I think it's a crazy rule because there are other things that you can do in a self-supported or unsupported ethic that I would argue are even more supportive. For example, the fact that you can communicate back and forth with family and friends, you can work on logistics, talk strategy if you need an emotional pick-me-up
mhm.
source. That's, that to me is absolutely abandoning independence to some extent in this. And so
I
that
agree with you. Yeah.
to me seems a little weird to single out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it became this problem of policing too, with so many attempts happening on each thing. They were worried that there would be just that either motivation or that ability to get unexpected support too, with already knowing that there's 20 people around them shooting, that they just thought they were going to create this new gray area and like contentiousness around too many new FKTs that's kind of where it went. And that was right around the time that Outside purchased them too. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. And Allison Mercer probably has the full story and the full opinion. But yeah, was spurred by Colorado Trail film and like, oh, people are going to make more films. That gives more opportunity or motivation to, I guess, bend the rules or something.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I mean, one of the reasons I bring it up is I was just going through your Instagram before this conversation and reliably from the get-go, there was at least 15 to 20,000 people like tuning into every single reel each day. So the demand there is, I mean, that's like that you had an audience it's crazy that there were that many eyeballs.
Yeah.
Set aside the tracker and stuff. I'm sure there was even more independent stuff there, but pretty cool to have that much of an engagement just on Instagram.
Yeah, for like 3 minutes of me just talking to a camera. Like that's the crazy part is well, sometimes it took a couple takes if I couldn't think of what to say or something. But yeah, for just like 3 minutes out of my day, that's the demand. It is pretty wild. But yeah, I didn't have any social media on my phone the whole time out there. So I actually sent my girlfriend, Allison, the videos and she would post them. And so I just knew just in the past and everything, like any interaction of something that could infringe on the right reasons or anything being out there that I didn't want to have. So I created quite a distance too. So yeah, I actually don't know how well received everything was. I put Instagram back on my phone, but forward thinking, not at the past updates or anything.
No Instagram for 45 days.
Yep. I think 2 days into it, I deleted it, but yeah, pretty much.
I can't believe you came back.
I had to. I mean, I preserved a life that I enjoy, so I had to come back. But yeah, it is tough. Like my best friend Luke was just like, dude, I think you need to get your Instagram again. Like people are probably wanting to interact with you and set stuff up. And it was like, okay, you're probably right, but that sucks. I'm not totally ready to venture back into this.
Yeah. Um, if we get into just sort of like this type of style itself, what makes you a good candidate for a self-supported attempt on the AT? Like what do you see as your superpowers for this type of project?
I think just always being able to find a reason to keep going. I think when you always tell yourself there's a chance, like at the halfway point, I was pretty far behind. I had to do like 1,100 miles in 3 weeks to get the record, but just telling myself that I had a chance and convincing myself along the way, even after a really bad day, it's like, all right, but we're not totally out of this. And then that gives you a reason to put together another good day. And, it can compound. So like my lowest lows still wouldn't end with me thinking I didn't have a chance. I'd sometimes ask people like, I don't know if I can get this, but that still was I don't know. It wasn't I can't get this I think that's the biggest thing mentally is for the AT at least is you just need this strong base of every tool that you got in your toolbox that better last you to the end. So you still got another tool to try. And that's kind of how I coach too, is like, keep trying things and eventually you'll just be done. And I think that was an aspect of it, but mentally just, I think belief or at least acceptance of uncertainty. Like maybe I can do this. I don't know. Let's find out. I think we always talk about you got to have confidence. It's like, I think it's okay to have the confidence of like, I don't know if I can, but I'm going to try my best to find out if I can. And I think we can take a lot of that from Christian Morgan's post about finding his limit too of
That line.
yeah, that was the goal. He did his goal. He did his best to get to the goal. And maybe the goal wasn't quite the A goal that was defined and we all know about, but he hit his personal goal. And I think if you think of these things like that, then you just come out of it more personally fulfilled, maybe less articles in Gear Junkie or something, but who cares about that anyways?
And like you're making me think about all of the contradictions just in humans in general. And you were talking earlier about there was a point in your life when you sort of had like a crisis of faith. Is it even worth being here? But then you talk about how your strong suit on the AT is this like resolute faith.
Yeah. So why I am here is because it was like, it doesn't matter if I go do the county or triple crown. Like, who cares if I go into credit card debt or whatever? It's like, I could commit suicide or I could go do this for 8 months and maybe life will get better. It's like still giving myself a chance. I think that's the magic in how my brain works. And it was like, of course, who cares if I don't have enough money? Like, what's the big deal? I'll just like die worth negative $5,000 or something. And I think just maybe it's morbid or something, but that way of thinking about everything where there's always a chance one way or another. And mine is based in pretty dramatic scenario, but that applies to everything on if there is an option, just, give yourself the better of the two options and you're in a pretty good spot if you never choose the worst option in life.
So mindset's number one. And then, I mean, I know you from the Coconut scene, great athlete, but like, does anything else apply? Like good climber, good descender, good logistics? Like, does anything else stack up here to make you a candidate?
I mean, I mailed myself 2 left shoes. I don't know that my logistics are A plus. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm a decent climber, descender, not as good on flat, so maybe that bodes well for the AT. Okay. Maybe my actual superpower is I can get by on less sleep than a lot of people, and I'm willing to go way deeper into that cave than a lot of people. And just talking to Joe Stringbean, who had the record about his John Muir Trail attempt last year, I think, or 2 years ago. 2 years ago, yeah, he just went to the spot where he's hallucinating so deeply and it was more foreign to him. So I think he's like a much better athlete than me because it was like, oh yeah, that happens to me all the time. Like that is how a standard FKT ends. So I think that's the only way I can compete with these better athletes is I can get really mentally messed up and keep making progress.
I think you told Allison this, but I thought it was interesting that you got to a point with your sleep schedule where you totally forfeited the 4 a.m. hour. So
Yeah.
we're like, I'm going to start at 4 a.m. and we're going to work ourselves into it. But then you're like, this is a losing game. Talk about that.
Yeah. I wanted to be, so I helped Nick Fowler attempt the record on the Pacific Crest Trail. And he was big on like 11 to 4 a.m. is when I sleep or something, because you start at 4, you feel ahead the rest of the day. And it was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to do that. And so I would go to bed at, I don't know, 10 or 11 early on and wake up at 4. But I'd like started to get where I needed a nap before sunrise. And it was just like, I've always said to everyone that I hate the 4 a.m. hour. Like, you should never be up that late. You should never get up that early. And I think by saying that for 15 years, it was so ingrained in me. It was like, let's just start. I love being up late at night. Let's start going later and get up at 5. Like 4 a.m. doesn't exist until maybe the end. And I don't know, just little things like that. That's a good example of a tool of like, oh, it's like I'm needing a nap. This isn't a good thing. Like, did that change everything dramatically? Like, I don't really know, but it was like, okay, I've got an option to get rid of this need to sleep so early. And I hate the 4s. What an amazing thing I came up with. Then I'm proud of myself. My self-esteem is higher. And then, I'm sleeping better. So placebo or not, I think those type of things of like, okay, I've solved this. This is a problem. I solved it perfectly. Let's see how this works out for me.
So if I look at the supported record on this trail over the last 10 years, it's been fairly dynamic in that it went from Scott to Carl to Carol to Tara. And that's a lot of changes in 10 years. Whereas this one has been a little bit more durable. And it took at least 8 years, I think, for it to change hands from you to Joe. What's your hypothesis for why it stood for as long as it did?
I don't know, because Joe said there weren't even that many attempts on it in the last, I guess, 8 years or so. But I think it's just a really hard concept too. Like John Kelly was like, I don't think I can do self-supported because I'm smaller than you guys. So the pack weight, and it's like, maybe that's true. But I think on both sides, from the ultra runners, like the fact you're basically backpacking is overwhelming. And from the thru hikers, it's like, oh, that's a rough trail. That's a lot of miles a day. And I think that a number of people could attempt and achieve it, but it just does take this really perfect intersection. And I think that's why it's a lot of the similar names on a lot of self-supported records over the past few years, because self-supported is really hard, and it's really based in experience too of just, I think you really need some through hiking or at least backpacking experience. We've seen people like Candace Burt attempt to shift into self-supported and not do well. Is I don't think you can just decide you're doing it this style. You really have to have like that basis of problem solving, of like loneliness. You're on your own, and like intimate knowledge of gear, not just what you have, but what other things are out there. So if something breaks, you can modify it into another type of gear that you've seen work in the past. I just think there's so many layers of knowledge that make you more likely to succeed on the self-supported side, that even though supported requires more resources, I think self-supported is easy to start, but hard to complete.
So I think I'm giving this a ton of credence because John Kelly's obviously a genius, brilliant mind, but it's interesting that he wouldn't do a self-supported attempt because of his height and because of the impact they're on. Like that, I had never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he brought up when I talked to him on the podcast. So I don't know. Yeah.
What else have you learned? Like, I'm sure you talked to Anish, Joey, String Bean. What stood out from sort of their lessons, their takeaways from their experiences?
All of them texted me like, don't give up, keep going, or something at some point. So I think they're all pretty bad spectators. Like, they get too nervous, like, oh, you can do it. It's like, yeah, I know, I'm good. Like, so I think that was just a funny thing of, yeah, all of them. Joe sent me like a voice message or something, and it's just like, yeah, this is funny. It's like, you guys all know the feeling and probably would be fine and wish you were in my shoes right now, but you're pretty anxious spectators. So yeah, I think, I don't know. I think through lines are maybe just very comfortable alone, I think, is a really big underrated thing of this. When you give your mind the ability to think about anything when you're in the midst of something really hard, it's really easy for that thing it gravitates to be failure. So I think you need really a lot of comfort with your own thoughts.
It's also wild to me that each of those people sort of at the time broke the record wide open versus marginally making improvements on it. And I would love to know, for example, the mindset of String Bean when he goes and lowers the time so much further below. What was it, Matt Kirk at the time, I think?
Yeah. And he was, and even Joey Camps, it would have been like 4 or 5 days if his record had stood the same year. So both were aiming for massive chunks.
Yeah. Were you also trying to blow it wide open and it just kind of happened that it was a marginal thing, or talk about that?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be, I thought a good day would be like 43 and a half days. And I thought I could break 44 days if things went pretty good. But yeah, I think it just, things went off the rails pretty good. Just as far as like the miles being a little harder. Every time I'd get 2 or 3 days of momentum, there'd be something that went wrong, like shoe issues or hurricane hit, or I broke a pole, or a resupply box didn't show up, or I left my electronics laying in a shelter. Like I just kind of did all these things to myself, which early on, like definitely mistakes. And then later on, those mistakes are caused by having to give up sleep to make up for those mistakes early on. So that's where a self-supported thing is so hard,
Mhm.
or anything of mistakes compound, where it's like, now I have to do more miles a day because of this issue. And now that I'm sleeping less, I left my electronics laying in a shelter in the Smokies. And so I don't have a battery bank anymore. It's like these kind of things compound, and all of them are pretty good reasons to quit too. So I think that's where the mindset comes in of like, okay, well, I just did it to myself again. How are we going to solve this one?
So if you're instructing the next generation on this trail, this type of style, do you believe there's quite a bit of time? Has it become a marginal record now that you had the experience doing what you just did? Like,
I think there's still 2 good days to take off it. I think you could be in the 43s.
wow. And and it sounds like for you, it'd be collecting time in the north if you went, because you did 1,100 miles in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of time in the South, but like New York, I had a pretty bad state. It'd be a little quicker in Maine. I think, yeah, it's just like something that long. In the northern half, there's just a lot of pieces you could improve on, I think.
Was southbound the right call?
I mean, no bugs. That was nice. Pretty good weather. The downside is you get less daylight, so I needed more charging power for headlamps and stuff like that. So there's trade-offs. Yeah, Joe said he only had like 4 or 5 days of rain going northbound, so weather might be just depending on the year. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't dive into the records too much to know everyone else's scenarios, but I think it worked pretty good for me, and not having to worry about getting Lyme disease is definitely a benefit.
You're good in the dark.
Yeah, I'm really good in the dark, as long as I can keep my headlamps charged.
I want to go back into training camps because I'm not
Mhm.
aware of anyone else in this arena that prepared on trail to the extent that you did. A lot of people have been on sighting it, or I guess maybe they've done return attempts to the trail if they have a through hiking history. But you did this 2 week training camp. Go into specifics of like things you learned, trade offs you made, like how you started the trail differently because of it.
Yeah, so I went up there and, basically started, uh yeah, I guess just a little bit north of Caratunk. And so before I'd swam the Kennebec River, so I really wanted just mentally to get the experience of take the little ferry, the canoe across. So I just needed that to be a little fixed in my mind of the overwhelming nature of when my feet didn't touch the ground in the middle of winter and just was bobbing with my pack across the Kennebec of like, let's rewrite this memory as part of this training camp. And then I got um, the experience of southern Maine too, and in through New Hampshire, and went out, I guess, of Hanover there. But the main thing I wanted to test was I wanted to move similarly to how I would move, and I wanted to really explore and make sure I liked the calories I was going to have. So I packed exactly what I would have every day. And then there were 2 or 3 resupplies in that area that you'd take it to the post office and they'd be like, well, this address doesn't come up. Do you still want to send it there? So I wanted to test out and make sure boxes were getting to those places too. And and then just get, some seasoning of the legs, but I could have got that anywhere. It was more like being on the trail, getting used to following the Gut Hook app, which is the Far Out app, which is the GPS app, looking at where the next water is, kind of becoming familiar with, okay, shelters are kind of crowded, so I will probably just take one of the tent sites near most of them, or just little things like that. I got to get back into the thinking mindset of doing an FKT or a through hike. It's not just the miles I'm putting on my legs. It's how much food, if I'm going into a place to resupply, how much food do I buy? Like what is a normal amount to eat? And like what food do I like out here? And so when I finished that, I came back and made changes actually to my diet and resupply boxes because it's like I do not like this amount of nuts. Like I know this is a ton of calories, but we got to put some different stuff in here. So yeah, I just wanted, I don't know, to get all those things crossed off at once. And yeah, I had to take a laptop and work some of the time out there, but that's okay. I think it was a huge part of the success in this.
Amazing. And then when you were on trail, what you talked about New York being hard. Maybe that's the example here, but what sections did you find particularly difficult, not with your own condition, but just terrain wise?
Yeah, New York, I don't know. It just was really hard. I think some people call it like Little Maine or something anyways. So there's just technical terrain. I just was moving slower than I thought I should the whole time. Like maybe 2 of the days, I think it's like 100 something miles. So the first day and a half, I'm like moving slower than I thought. And then I break my pole. And then it's like, yeah, this state sucks. Like things are so bad. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And I think it just was like a little adversity as far as terrain or speed. And then it builds on it like, oh, this creek was dry. So then it's just becoming more and more negative. And then it's like broke a pole like that. It's like confirmation bias of like, yeah, this state has it out for me. So that was a really tough one. It's anytime adversity stack like that so quickly, it was just a really big mental game of get through and get over what happened. The Smokies were weird. There was like no one there, and it was eerie because of the iconic smoke from all the vegetation, which is basically fog. And yeah, it just felt like eerie, lonely, apocalyptic. And I'd sacrificed so much sleep up to that point. I was having trouble just like grasping onto reality. And that's where I lost my electronics bag. Yeah, I think every day could have a hard part and a low point. It's just such a variable trail, which I think is also the draw.
What was the Hurricane Helene impact like down south? Was it still pretty rugged, pretty tough?
Yeah, you can see a lot of the impact. I mean, there were a number of down trees to climb, like, but it didn't cost me a ton of time. There's 6 miles of trail still shut down, I believe. So there was like a really weird roadwalk detour that was actually a little longer than the trail, but you could just see the impact. These trees that were as big as a 50-year-old tree in your yard were just torn up by their root ball and just deposited. And they'd done some work and cut some of the branches and some you could climb over and stuff. But you could just see these like older growth forest just leveled by the damage. And that was really crazy and sobering of like, this is the power of nature here. And Hot Springs, North Carolina has a ton of construction still going on. You can tell it really got pretty much leveled by the hurricane. So yeah, I mean, less than about a year, I guess, later, the impacts are still really present down there. And I know that John Kelly's been trying to tell us all that too. And after seeing it, it's like, yeah, this is a multi-year recovery, not just donate for a month and they'll have it figured out.
There's this new multi-part docu-series on Netflix right now about Hurricane Katrina.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen it, but I love those types of documentaries.
yeah.
Just because it's, again, like you just think about all of the trauma that our nation has experienced in very different ways over the last 250 years. This being one where, like, you and I were alive for it. I think I was 14 or 15 when
Yeah.
it happened. And it makes me wonder, like, okay, that one got a lot of fanfare largely because New Orleans is a major city. But what was the biggest city in that area? Asheville, Boone, that got affected. And so I
Yeah.
knew it was kind of in the news cycle, but equally traumatic in a lot of ways. And the damage, just incredible.
Yeah. More far reaching damage for sure. Yeah. And like you compare that to the fires in LA and stuff too. And the coverage, I don't know, kind of ended very abruptly for Helene. It kind of shows the downside of our news cycle, and everyone moves on to the next trauma or tragedy so quickly when we haven't even solved the last one.
You mentioned Hot Springs. I know there's a lot of trail-sided communities, Damascus, Irwin down south, um, plenty up north, Monson, etc. When you're doing this self-supported, my understanding is that you have to walk everything, including in and out of
Mhm.
towns to get resupplies. I guess two questions. One, how many cumulative miles did you spend off trail? And what's an example of a really, relatively far off resupply that you have to do?
Yeah, nothing. So me and my girlfriend came up with a pretty good spreadsheet of a bunch of options that really limited going off trail very far. So maybe the most was like a mile Or the worst was right after my box wasn't at Big Meadow Lodge in Shenandoah. It was like, oh, there's a wayside a mile off trail. And I went to it and it was closed because Labor Day hours had ended. So I did that bonus mile, or I guess 2 miles for no reason. And so that was probably the one that sticks in my mind the most. But I would say maybe 15 miles. I don't think 10 to 15, not a ton, but I mean, that is, I don't know, half mile a day or something.
10 to 15 cumulative off trail miles. That was it.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. Very few.
And what was the longest? What was the longest hike off trail you had to do?
Um, I don't
You know,
know.
like Connecticut's right there, so you can just walk.
I didn't go into Kent. Oh, Salisbury, maybe. That might have been a mile.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're doing 50 plus miles a day, my longest resupply was 160 miles. And on the AT, you have a lot of options in 160 miles. So I think by just doing more miles per day, you can pick and choose which locations you go into.
Okay. So
Like Appalachian Market is right on the trail, like trying to pick places like that. Or there's so many hostels that, you know, a quarter of a mile, half a mile off, I can have mailed a package there and grab that. So very, very small amount off trail most of the time.
that's amazing. Yeah, I guess I had always thought, and maybe I was ignorant that like that would be a huge piece of this, but
On the PCT, maybe, but
yeah.
less so here.
Was it Caratunk that you stopped in Maine?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's right before the Kennebec. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And wow, amazing. How about like pack size? Is that adequate for what you had to carry?
Yeah. I think it was more than enough for most of the times, but I had to, 3 days of food was the most I ever carried. So I had to adhere to that. So that was like 9 pounds and covered. I mean, my pack was mostly food all the time. So it was a 25 liter from Ultraspire that's, I think, coming out fairly soon.
Yours?
And it's a prototype one. I should look up the name, but yeah. And so it was really sufficient. I mean, I had a 50-degree sleeping bag, the smallest rain jacket, and a Alpha Direct 60 fleece hoodie, which you could see through. It was so thin. That was my insulative layer. And other than that, I did have a tarp. I had a 7 ounce tarp and a piece of Tyvek, and then a thin foam pad, like a Z fold pad that would go from my shoulder down to my hip bone. And that's all that it would cover. So it just made campsite selection premier.
What did a normal day of food look like for you?
Yeah, so I'd start with 1,000 calorie drink mix that I made myself. It had like chia seeds and coconut powder and a bunch of other things. Could give the recipe if anyone cares. And so that would be, I mean, it was like 6 ounces too. It was pretty heavy, hefty amount. And then I would have these bars that came up with my mom actually that are 1,000 calories. And so that would be 2,000 of my 8 to 10,000 calories right there. And eat that throughout the morning, and then filled it in from there with some nuts, but mostly like emotionally uplifting food that I actually like. So maybe like crackers or um, like sour things or sweets or gummy stuff, and a few bars or stroopwafels or things, peanut butter packets that are like hitting the numbers you want to hit, but it's impossible with 10,000 calories to hit that number and want to eat it all if it's all just like perfect food and fuel for yourself athletically. So there were plenty of like chips and Rice Krispie treats and that kind of thing mixed in, but probably like half the calories were from the more decent realm than a standard through hiker diet.
It's pretty cool that you were able to condense 2,000 calories into those two items in the morning.
Yeah, yeah, it was really clutch because in the period of the day when I didn't really want to eat so much, it's like a couple bites off that bar with like nuts, and some of them had dates and stuff in them, that I could just get my calorie goal without having to eat, because eating was such a chore out there. Like if anyone wants to try eating 10,000 calories in a day, you'll be so sick of eating or the act of eating or trying to decide what I should eat this hour, that yeah, just having something that I could drink and not worry about eating for an hour was really nice.
Wow. On the electronic side of things, just in terms of keeping your phone battery up, etc., what type of battery banks are you using? How many? What brand?
all the brands that I had. So I mailed myself a freshly charged one in each resupply box. And so if it was going to be a day and a half to 2 days, it would just be like a 10,000 milliamp. And if it was going to be like 2 days plus, I'd do like a 15,000 milliamp amount. And then 3 days or a longer stretch between battery banks, I'd mail like a 20,000. And this would charge my tracker would be first priority, and then headlamp second priority, and then phone third priority as far as like charging stuff. And I guess my watch, but it didn't. I only had to charge it like 3 or 4 times, you know.
Okay. Is everything going to be on Strava? Like, were you tracking on the watch in addition to course?
Some, I think, yeah, they're putting yeah, it's all on there. I just, most of my stuff has been private for a while, but yeah, I can turn it on. All the iFit files I think are actually on the FKT verification thing. So, or fit files, whatever they're called. So yeah, I tracked every day except for one with the tracker because my tracker died. And I probably tracked 40 of the days with my watch based on battery power and just sometimes remembering to track it. But I pretty much have all the granular data from the whole thing.
And then with the tech you had, I'm sure there's an entertainment component, no social media, but and I guess talk about the distribution between just like time spent in your mind versus, I don't know,
Yeah,
you're watching YouTube or you have an audiobook. Like, what are you doing in that space?
I'd say 50, I don't know, 60% of the time I would have nothing. And then the other 40% would be either the Free Outside podcast or the Singletrack podcast. No, not a lot of running media.
You could listen to yourself, dude. Oh my gosh, I hate the sound of my voice.
I did listen to a couple because I was interested. It was like, I can't, like, I don't know. I think this was a fun conversation with Joey. I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm not that version of Jeff. That's not me on the recording. That's like another guy who does that. Yeah, I listen to some podcast, some audiobooks, especially at night or early in the morning when it's kind of eerie and it's hard to stay stimulated outside of the beam of your headlamp. I would put in some stuff, but usually just like, you know, Disney EDM mashups or something, just really hardcore stuff.
Um, Obviously you had the training camp, so you learned a lot about what could possibly go wrong and you fixed it before you started. When you think about all the other things that didn't go your way, like foot issues and stuff, in retrospect, how much do you think those things are avoidable versus it's just a natural extension of being on the trail for that long and it's you have to just deal with it?
I think a lot is avoidable. I think I'm a certain way of like two left shoes over here and forgotten electronics bag and even a box not being there. It's like could have called ahead and made sure all the boxes are where they're supposed to be is I think maybe like 70% of things you can avoid, but you're going to have your own 70% based on like who you are. Are you someone like really anxious about weight? You'll probably not bring enough food at some point or like little things or not willing to stop or don't want to pull your rain jacket on. Like we all have our little idiosyncrasies or issues that we run into. Like, oh, I got a rock in my shoe, but I don't want to fix it. Then that creates like a blisters. There's just infinite things that can go wrong with this. And I think none of us are going to have a perfect attempt at something like this that people are going to find their own 70%. And then the overlapping 30 are like foot issues, of course, or, you know, section of trail is rugged or messed up or water doesn't exist at a stream. I think some of those things will be out there for everyone, whether it's too much water, too little, or foot issues. That just it will happen. But then the other 70% are going to be very tailored to whoever is going for it. Like maybe Finn likes to go out too hard. It's like, well, that's his thing that he did. Like, so I don't know. They're avoidable, but I also didn't make same mistakes other people would make out there too. So it's hard to just narrow it down. And, you know, I think it's just such a unique adventure for each person. It's really interesting. We compare them with the time as well.
That is probably exactly why it's hard to give advice because like you said, you could say that this went wrong for me and the person who's receiving it who wants to go do this thing can be like, wait, that was an issue for you? Like I've got that dialed, but
Yeah.
then there's something that you had dialed that they would never think about. So what do you even offer them based on their presets and disposition, stuff like that?
I think there's only one piece of advice for FKTs or at least a competitive FKT or something that's right on the verge of what you're capable of is just deciding and making sure when you're 100% invested and ready to go after it. That's when you can be pointed at problem solving versus reasons to quit, and motivation and training and mindset and gear and financial commitment of like, there was, if I needed something at the end, I would have paid like $1,000 for it. Like I was so committed, it wasn't a big deal. Of like, that's how 100% invested I was. And that's just one avenue of an example that everyone's going to have their own style, their own gear, their own training methods, and their own way of attacking an FKT. But you just have to be 100% committed to doing it your way or your style, or just completing it or going after it, because like 99% just isn't good enough in these. That 1% means you're probably going to quit. I don't do these very often, maybe 2 or 3 years at this point in my life, every 2 or 3 years, because it's so hard to get 100% ready and committed and invested. And I knew I was 100% in probably November, December of last year. So it was like, I can just build on this and I know that won't change. But like last year at this time, I wouldn't have been 100% committed to going after it. It would have been just going through the motions. So I think you just have to be more committed than anything else in your life, and everything else you can figure out once you have that motivation.
Maybe, and this is less a question about, you know, what went wrong that caught you off guard, but were there any things about the experience itself that surprised you that you weren't prepared to deal with, but it was just like either a pleasant surprise or just I wasn't counting on that.
It was more lonely than I thought it would be. I thought there was going to be more people out because it was still early August to late September. But by the second half, there were just very, maybe kids were in school and no southbounders were that far south and all the northbounders were further north, that there was just like no one out there a lot of the time. And I do pretty well in that, but I was starting to be like, man, I still haven't seen hardly anyone the last couple days. And even the Smokies, I only saw a couple people the whole time. So
Dude, it's because they're too busy
yeah,
merging with AI. This is the singularity's happening. They're just going to sit at home and order DoorDash and hang out on social.
I know I got to plug in for an update because I think I'm a few behind.
So you were sort of counting on getting a rise, getting some info from like seeing people on the trail and maybe people recognize you, stuff like that.
Yeah, just like get to have a human conversation and for 20 seconds a day be a normal human, I think is kind of a nice break in some of these FKTs on like ask about how someone else's hike is going, talk about the water situation ahead. Like they're not impactful or important on like the macro level, but I think the micro level of day to day, they're pretty important to have human interaction. And I just didn't have a lot of that. It was almost like my times on the Continental Divide Trail, but I knew it would happen out there. I didn't think it would be so empty on the America's most social trail.
Um, when you wake up each day, is there a mental game plan? Like, are you someone that needs to have a mantra or you need to remotivate yourself?
Definitely not. There are mantras and techniques and things, but I'm way too self motivated. I think why I have so many projects always going.
So like recommitting wasn't an issue. Like when you start the trail at Katahdin and you finish at Springer, you're like, you don't need to like re-up on motivation.
No, I think maybe every night, like a couple hours of night hiking might have been hard to just like keep pushing to where I'm going to sleep. But waking up every day, it's like, all right, we are back to it. Let's go. And I don't know, there's yeah, a bunch of techniques. You can like remove yourself from your body and be like the announcer voice, like, here he is, getting up, throwing on shoe number one, Jeff Garmire, let's go. You can just do all sorts of fun stuff. I think it's so fun to, not be judged, be out there in the middle of nowhere and work on your accents. You can have conversations with yourself. It's like just such a gift of time to do whatever you want with.
Did you learn anything about yourself out there?
A lot. Yeah. I cried for like the first time in pretty much my adult life out there. So
What
it,
kind
when my resupply box didn't show up and I had about 500 calories to make it 32 miles, and it was like, well, I can make it that far, but I think this is like the worst thing I could do for the rest of this FKT, like doing a fasted 50K and then having 1,000 miles to go. It's like, I don't like, I'm going to keep going and pretend that this isn't going to ruin my whole trip, but this does not look good. And it was just like emotionally overwhelming to feel like I was pushing and charging and gaining on the record, and then like it was all ripped away by a lodge just throwing away my resupply box. And so that was a pretty big emotional, it unlocked a lot emotionally for me. I think connecting to myself doing that trail 9 years ago, fresh off being like, should I not be alive right now, or should I go do the longest through hike I can conceivably come up with? There were a lot of emotional moments like that of just like connecting, being like, that's pretty sick that I made that decision and I got here. Like, I remember there were 3 feet of snow and it was -10 here. I think that was really cool. And I just learned to reconnect to a different version of me, and kind of gave me a lot more patience with myself of like, this version of me has been crafted over 34 years.
Um, $30,000 raised for the Trevor Project in the process. Is it 30?
Yeah, I think we're over 35,000 now. Yeah. Yeah.
For people that don't know, Trevor Project.
Yeah, the Trevor Project provides like a crisis line, therapy, counseling, a number of services for the LGBTQ plus community involved in like suicide prevention and mental health and stuff. And so over the last 10 years where I've done things notable enough to be able to raise money, I've always chosen mental health organizations, and especially suicide prevention. And so the Trevor Project, just in today's landscape and stuff, and just felt like a way to maybe fight back a little about against some of the people that want to dehumanize some of these communities and stuff, and at least beyond just the money raised, of like showing that, $35,000 plus of donors still care and value this community, that if someone's on the fence or having a hard time, like you can just see this amount of people are supportive, and it's not like you have to interact with any of them or even use the Trevor Project for any funding. It's like, now hopefully we've shown that there is this community that does care and value people's lives, even if they're different, or even if there's a very vocal other side that says we don't care about these people and they're not human or something like that. It's like, at least can use my little bit in the spotlight to show the opposite and send some money that direction, because I've used text in crisis lines, and it's pretty cool they exist. You don't even have to talk on the phone to somebody.
And is the link still active? If people are listening to this and want to donate, they can still do so.
Totally. Yep. Still active. It's in my Instagram. It's not like a super easy link. So,
Okay. The Trevor Project, really cool. A few more questions before we go. You mentioned that there could be a book in the works here, which I think is exciting. That's obviously, I'm guessing that, the production for that is more long-term. I'm sure you'll go on other podcasts to storytell. What else? How else are you going to just like reflect on this publicly over the next few weeks? Where can people go to like check out more stuff?
Yeah, it's a little scary, but I think I'm going to press record on my own podcast and talk through some things on there. So that'll be interesting. Yeah. And that comes out. I do 2 a week over there, free outside podcast. So we'll see what comes out there. But yeah, it's really tricky to figure out the combination of like publicly and privately, I don't know, talk and share thoughts, because it is, like we said earlier, once you're done, you're just done. And then you have to all the pieces and the cards have to shuffle themselves into place in your own mind. And people are like, well, tell us what happened out there. And it's like, well, I haven't totally put my own deck in the right order on knowing how I feel about certain things or what happened out there, because everything is forward moving, and you just move on from a problem, you solve it, you move on to the next day, and you're so in the present that you hardly know what happened last week. And then to get to the end, and it's like, well, tell us about the last 45 days. And it's like, man, I'm having a hard time remembering all this stuff correctly too.
Over the next few years, assuming that you enjoy following these types of FKT attempts, if you could create a short list of people that you would like to see go after your self-supported time, who are some of the people that would be on that list and why?
Wow. I mean, I think it would be really cool for someone like Tara to go self-supported and try for the overall FKT. I just know when Anish got overall records, that it inspired women as a whole, and I think that that would just be really cool because I think there's a lot of opportunity, and we've seen a lot of growth on single women going and using our public lands and through hiking. But just what she did last year, even for supported overall, just I think did a lot for uplifting women in the sport as well. So I think that would be number one. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know many of the like young 20-year-olds that are good at this kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. Who do you think?
I
Who
was
should we
surprised
say?
you didn't know Nick Fowler.
Yeah, maybe Nick Fowler. I don't know. I think yeah, maybe Nick Fowler, maybe Josh Perry, maybe Will Peterson. I don't know. It's just like, I think it has to fit into being part of their story. Like, do they want to do it? Like, Will is incredible and capable, but also he like does these amazing things in the whites of like, does the AT share that meaning? And Nick Fowler loves the PCT. And I think you can love it in the adventure, but I do think it just has to be the right reason and loving it and wanting to go after it too. It's just like a very different style adventure than either the White Mountains or the PCT of you kind of just have to be mentally invested in a large chunk of it because it's kind of boring. Like there's not a lot of views. It's not stimulating like the terrain of the whites. It's not sweeping vistas and mountain peaks like the PCT, and it's more technical. So maybe someone like Josh Perry, who's done a number of things and bounced around too, might find meaning in it. But yeah, I think so many people are capable. It is just such a chunk of your life, and you sacrifice so much on either side of it that that'd be the main thing on like if it's worth it to each of them. Maybe there is fame and fortune for the right person after it, but I don't really know what this has led to for me other than I accomplished and kind of bookended my AT experience over 9 years, and that's the fulfillment I'm getting out of it. So I think just anyone that's got that reason for fulfillment and enjoyment of going after something like this, I'll be stoked to follow along and see. But that's also the thing that none of us will know. Like we can guess what motivates somebody, but they got to truly believe it themselves versus just say it.
One of the reasons I ask is, you noted the relative hiatus in attempts between when Joe
Mm-hmm.
did it and when you were doing it this past fall. And I just wonder, will it happen again? Will we see another just like, I don't know if dry spell is the right phrase?
No, we'll see people going after it. I think they got reminded that it's an FKT or something.
Yeah, all right.
Well, I mean, after Terra did it, it seemed like there was an uptick in supported attempts or something.
But what was crazy is when, for example, and this is a totally separate event, but when Jasmine Paris became the first woman to finish Barkley, one of the first things I heard Laz say was we actually had a record low number of female applicants the next year. It
Wow.
blew my mind.
Okay.
Which again, I don't know the reason for that. It just like that's not what I thought would have been the case. I would have thought that would have opened the floodgates of just even more people, because she kind of demonstrated the possibility.
That's interesting. Maybe it's like a good look into human psychology of like, did it lose its luster since no one else can ever be first? I don't know.
Um, all right, before we go, I want to read this quote to you because I think it's a good place to cap it, but I want to get your take on it and if it's even more true now. You said this was from your like one of your immediate posts after finishing. You say, "quote It's okay to care, to really obsessively spreadsheet wieldingly care about something. Getting to the start line after dedicating so much time, money, and effort is a victory in itself." End quote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's just really cool to be in my 30s and to care about something so much and then follow through on that caring to put it into action of I probably could have like blown up my life again, but I also didn't want to do that. So I had to care in so many other aspects beyond just the FKT planning and uh, commitment and money. It's like, well, how am I going to get all these other businesses and things I built and really love still in place and running so that I can keep living the life that I live, which is like really rare for through hiking. Most people quit their jobs and stuff. It's like, how can I do this with maintaining my life and fitting it into my life rather than just making this my life choice?
Well, Jeff, great to have you on the show. Before we go, and we'll link to it all in the show notes, but go check out the Free Outside podcast. I'm an avid listener myself. Go check out your Instagram, Free Outside. coaching business. And yeah, man, I think what you did was super cool. I hope the community sees similar excitement and value in it. And thanks for opening up and sharing just some of the experience out there. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Good time on the Single Track podcast. Although Double Track's pretty good too.